Okay, you hear me? Yes, good. Okay, as said, I am Kaisa Tammi-Moilanen and I'm very glad to be here with you. As already mentioned, I come from Vanaya prison. I'm a director there, and I will tell just shortly about Vanaya Open Prison so that you know where I am coming from and why I'm speaking here about women in prisons. Some of you will come to visit our women's unit later today, so I won't explain too much about our units. But Vanaya Open Prison has two separate units here in Hämeenlinna, and one is for men with 53 places. It's called Ojoinen unit, and Ojoinen has a background as a labor colony, so the main activity there still, even today, is real work for other institutions. So all the men almost every morning they leave for work for 8 hours a day and come back at afternoon back to prison. Then we have the other unit, which is called Vanaya unit, and that is an open institution, open unit for women, female inmates, with 55 places, and it is the only prison unit in whole Finland which is only for women. So all the other women in prisons in Finland are placed to prison which are dominated by men as inmates. And you must keep that in mind when I talk about women in prisons. I was really happy to come to substitute. This is one of my favorite topics to talk about women, and not only, let's say, because of the fact, as mentioned by Lena, that women, very often we forget that we have women in prisons. And at least when I go to the Finnish conferences, seminars about prison life, quite often I hear that very soon we hear that we refer to inmate as a guy, a man, and if we talk about the spouse, or the partner, they quite often we start talking about wife at home because we think that the man is in the prison. It's safe to say that the norm for a prisoner is a male person. It's a man who's in a prison. And that's of course quite understandable because most of the inmates, most of the prisoners are men. And most of the crimes in Western societies are done by men. So it is understandable that we tend to forget, or at least we don't concentrate that much on those women who are in prisons. They form a minority in there. But as said, I will talk about in this presentation about some facts that we know about women in prisons here in Finland. Those are facts from statistics and from few researches. I will go through those facts with you, and it will be interesting to later hear whether you find those facts to be similar in different countries. I think there's a lot of similarities among Nordic countries when talking about women prisoners. So I will go through those facts about women, but then of course, because I am not a scientist, I have done no research, at least in 20 years, so I will speak from the experience. I worked for the prison service from 1991, so I've already been here quite a long time, and I worked in different prisons. I have always worked in prison, so I'm not, I don't work in a head office and I don't have that perspective. I am on a ground level, and I have been fortunate, I have to say, that for some reason I have always worked in a prison where there has been women. It's not so common, but for some reason I have always ended up to the prison where I always worked with women also, women prisoners. So what I will be presenting here today with you comes also from the experience I have gotten. Then I warned you already that I will say a few things which are my opinions. They are not official opinions, and let me say, if I talk to Finnish colleagues, if there was only Finnish people here and colleagues from prison service, they would tell you that my opinions are somewhat controversial also. But still they asked me to come here, so that's a good thing. But anyway, I will talk about my opinions also. And I hope that when we go to the group discussions, you also will share your opinions, because I think these issues with equality and the rights of the different minorities, they also are a matter of opinion. So this will be the kind of form of my presentation. At the beginning, I already mentioned the fact that women are a minority in prisons, and every time we speak about prisoners, we then can refer to the minority group called women. There are more than just that minority thing that we have to always think about when we talk about women in prisons. First of all, those women who end up to prison, those are very small minority of women from the society. Most of the women never ever go to prison. It is much bigger group of men who will end up to prison from the whole group of men who live in a society. So these women who end up to the prison, they are minority of women from the society. And let me tell you, they know that. They know that they are different kind of women. They are very special, and they are very small group of them who go to prison. And later on I will talk about how this affects what we do with them. So then the other minority issue is the fact that I have mentioned already many times, that these women in prisons, they are also minority of prisoners. And they feel that too, every day. As I said, in Finland, there is most of the women placed in prisons where most of the inmates are men. And then there's a female unit for those women in that prison. So they know that they are minorities in prisoners also. Then I have to point out, because when hearing about your discussions from yesterday about foreign prisoners, we should not forget that among women prisoners, this minority group, we also have minorities among those women. We have, at least in Finland, one of the a big group of minorities in Finnish women prisoners population. There is gypsies. We don't know how many of them because no one has any statistics about it yet. Later on this might change, but we don't have statistics about ethnic background. But we know that it's a matter of, it's a real thing. If you are a gypsy woman, there is many of those in prisons, so they are minorities in a minority, so to say. Then there's also foreigners among women prisoners too. And foreigners with different kind of statuses. Some are deported right after the release. Some will stay in Finland. Some have permanent life here in Finland. Whole another situation with those groups. But now I come to the controversial part. I already warned you. One thing that we should also remember, that being a woman is not a minority. So half of the society are women and half of men. So when we talk about women in prisons, we should remember that half of the society are women and they should have the same rights, same things prepared for them in a prison life than men. Because it's okay to be a woman, I think, in a society. So, because quite often when we start talking about women in prisons, they're so special group and all that, and we tend to forget that almost half of the people in the whole world are women too. So keep that in mind. Now to the facts, so that I won't get lost with the controversial parts. In Finland, there was a great increase of amount of female population in prisons in 15 years. So in 1997, we had, in average, every day 145 female prisoners, female inmates in Finnish prisons, and that was about 4.5% of whole prison population. That was in 1997, not so far away, 15 years ago. Today, 2012, the average of women in Finnish prisons is about 240, and it consists about 7% of prison population. Well, if you were in Finland in 2000, 2005, somewhere there were quite many media publications about women are doing more crime. What will happen to our society because the increase of female prisoners is growing. Where will our society go if women start doing crime as much as men? And there was a lot of explanations. This is because nowadays women drink alcohol as much as almost like men. There's a whole bunch of explanations came to public knowledge, and everyone was really worried about what's going to happen in our society now that women start doing more and more crime and we get more prisoners from female population. But in past 4 years, for example, not our female population in prisons has not grown anymore, has not increased at all. In fact, it has lowered a little bit, but no media attention to that. It's not so nice to tell that they did a lot of more crime at some point, but now it's getting easier. We are not getting any more women to prisons than, for example, 5 years ago. So, but still, that's a real fact that in past 4 years, the number of women in prisons has stayed the same, and it's, in fact, it has gone down a bit, just a bit. And I checked the real procents of female inmates. Today it's something like 6.7 or 6.8% of all inmates. At some point we were already over 7%. Okay, but so that's a fact. Women has, the number of women and the relative portion of women in prison population has grown significantly in the past 15 years, but for now it seems to settle somewhere here. And yet we have more than 90% of prisoners, they are still men. We know that in Finland, every fifth crime that police investigate, in every fifth time the suspect is a female person, a woman. But when you go to look more serious crime, those things, or those crimes which might lead the person to sentence to prison, there you have 1/10 of the suspects are women at the moment in Finnish society. So that's some relation to these numbers of prisoners too. Women in prisons in Finland are in average 37 years old. They are somewhat half year older than their male counterparts. The reason why women are in prison in Finland, one could say that they are always for serious matters. 45% of all the women in prison are because of violent crime. That includes all sort of criminal acts, but violence is the main reason for Finnish woman to end up to prison. Then the next biggest group is drug-related crime, which is something like 15%, and then we come to the theft and drug driving, and then etc. Other type of crimes. But so the violence is the main reason why women go to prison in Finland. And that's something that we should think about when we then have, when we think about education, when we think about all kinds of things. We should remember what was the reason why they were coming to the prison for the first time. If you want to kind of think how they differ from men in prisons, women are more likely to come from the violent crimes. So that group is bigger in women than men. But the good thing about women, if you want to put it that way, is that 55% of women in prisons are first-timers. And we know that the rate of recidivism of women in prisons are lower than men. If a woman in Finland comes to the first time to prison, we only meet 30% of those women again in prison. So 30% of all first-timers women come to second time. So 7 out of 10 will not come again to the prison. With men, the return percent is bigger. It's something like 40, little more than 40%. So, and it stays the same. The difference between men and women repeating crime and coming back to the prison, it stays the same difference between the second timers and third timers But at some point, I think it was somewhere after fifth or seventh, 6th time in prison, after that the rate of coming back is getting the same with men and women. Okay, so a lot of first-timers among women, and since they come because of our violent crime, very many of them, they stay quite long time in prison. They have long sentences. I think this is something that you would find interesting from your perspective. In general, I could tell you that women prisoners in Finland they have an even poorer, the worse educational background than men. And you already know that it's not too great with men, male population in prison. So only there's a 6% of women who have not finished even the basic level of schooling. They have not finished elementary school. On the controversy, we have some 6% who have graduated from high school. And about 30% of women have some sort of vocational training background. They have some sort of certificate of some education of a vocational school. So you have about 70% of women in prison who have not any real educational background, no vocational training. It's a huge, big percent and big number of people, grown-up people who have lived in Western life, Nordic life, where we believe about education and we are very proud of our educational system. But those who end up in prison, they, for some reason, have not really benefited from our educational system. Social background, we know that from female inmates, about 1/3 of them report to be married or living with some spouse or partner. So 1/3 of them. 1/3 of them reports to be divorced. There is 6% of women who report themselves to be widows, and the rest are not in any kind of relationship, or they don't find themselves to be any of other groups. We know that 2/3 of the women in prison have children under age of 18. So 2/3 of them, so we something like 66% of women have children somewhere. And just an interesting note from one statistics was that when we ask and we evaluate inmates when they come into prison, we ask what kind of relationship you have with your spouse, if you have one, and your partner. Is he or she supporting you to get out of criminal life? Is she or he supporting you getting out of alcohol or drugs abuse? 2/3 of the men who come to prison tell, if they have a partner, they tell that 2/3 of the men tell, my partner supports me and helps me to change my life, and it's kind of a motivational thing that my partner wants me to get my life back to normal, and supports in these acts. But with women who have a partner, 60% of them will tell about the partner who's not supporting their a way of better life, life without drugs, life without substances like without crime. So this is something that again affects those women in prisons. As I said, I have some favorite issues, and one of these has to do with this educational background. I already mentioned to you that, as I said, I myself think that in Finland we have a good basic education, common school for everyone. It's free and all that, as in all Nordic countries, and we are proud that we have education that is possible for everyone. It doesn't matter whether you come from the rich family or poor family. At some point, there's an idea that everyone has a possibility to study and educate themselves. And we are very proud in Nordic countries in general, I think, about the fact that nowadays women can do a lot of things that perhaps we couldn't do 100 years ago. We can be president of the state, we can be directors of prisons, or we can do a lot of things. And some people, some voices in our society tell us that, well, now you see what's happening. Women have too many rights. They can be anything. Now they do crime, and they drink like men, and that's where this thing will go when men don't open any more doors for women, and we will end up to the situation where women get too loose and the society will fall apart because of the fact that we have too equality among men and women. If you look at the group of women in prison, they are those women who have not benefited at all from that development of equality in society in general. These women do not use the communal daycare for their children. They don't use these educational possibilities what we have nowadays. They don't be in high positions in a society where now women can go to. These women are out of all of these benefits that women should have in society today. So the reason that they drink alcohol, they use drugs, and they use violence. I would say that it has nothing to do with the fact that women nowadays have some rights as equal to men. It is not the equality issue that brings women to prison. In fact, it's quite the opposite. But it's a hard issue. I have no real explanation for it, but I want to point out that because every once in a while I hear this myth that, well, where will our society go now that women have so many rights? Well, more about facts. I will refer to the study of Joukama and others who were doctors, psychologists, etc. And they reported 2010 survey of health and working capacity and need for treatment of criminal sanctioned clients here in Finland. They had a very big group of clients that they went through. There were groups like fine default prisoners, those who end up to prison because they are too poor to pay their fines. Then they had male prisoners, big group of male prisoners. They had remand prisoners, those who were in custody waiting to sentence. They had those clients who were serving community service. And yes, they had 100 women from the prisons. So female inmates were involved and reported in this study. And it was very interesting what they learned. And I will report only those results that they told us about women in prisons. So, from their survey, and this has been reported in many other surveys, that some 70 or even 75% of women in prisons report that they have experienced family violence. So these women who come to prison, 3 out of 4 have been beaten up at home or by someone who was close to them. So this is a big issue, at least in Finnish prison service, and this is something that we have overlooked way too long, because this has serious issues when you think about these women. They come to your classroom and they have been beaten up, maybe many partners, maybe by 10 years, 20 years. That can be the background of them, and it affects them today. 25% of women who were studied had already experienced violence in childhood at home. Almost 1/3 of the women in prison reported that they have had sexual contact with the adult under age of 16, which is a criminal act, in fact, in Finland, from the adult's part. So then there was also 1/3 of them who reported also sexual molestation, sexual violence, what they've experienced in their life. 70%, so 7 out of 10 women had been in psychiatric care before prison service, before prison sentence. So 70%, and 43% were in a hospital, getting a medical attention in psychiatric care. The rest of the group were outpatients, what you call those. But still, so the mental problems, issues of mental health are very big with the group of women in prison. Those doctors who studied them, they found out that about 85% of women studied, they were able to give some sort of a substance abuse diagnosis to them. 85. More from the study. Half of the women who come to prison, they've been in a hospital because they've been battered, they've been beaten up so badly that they need a medical attention in hospital. 50%, half of the women. In prison, 45, so almost half of the women receive medication for some mental illness. Permanent, regular medication in prison. Same amount of women also needed some regular medication for sleeping problems. Then I just took it from that study, this one peculiar info, that 60%, is more than half of the women who come to prison report that they never had safe sex. Think about our public schools educate everyone about how important this is to protect yourself. It's one of the, I think, the big things in 1990s, 2000. It's been a big thing in our society that everyone knows that you have to protect yourself. There's